chatting to Russell Loubser, former CEO of the JSE Limited. You're watching Captains of Industry here on CNBC Africa. Russell, it's good to have you back in the hot seat.
Nice to be back, thank you.
Give us a little insight as to what you've been doing post the JSE.
Post the JSE, yeah. I've been keeping nice and busy, but just enough time to have enough time to do the nice things. So essentially just two boards, and that's the way I'd like to keep it. Philosophy being very simple. I'm only prepared to join a board that where I can trust the management and where I think I can get to understand the business either immediately or very quickly.
Are you involved in any mentorship programs?
No formal programs. There's a lot of informal stuff going on, but no formal. I don't think I'm a very good mentor.
Why aren't you a good mentor?
I don't know. I just don't. Maybe I'm not too bad, but I don't think I could be a good mentor. Maybe I'm a little bit impatient.
That's a huge loss because you're one of the heavyweight greats of the environment, Captains of Industry in South Africa. Let's focus now on the boards that you are involved in and how much of that time is taken up by board meetings.
It's one private company and then a big group. So it's Straight PDY Limited, which I've been on since inception. We created that back in '98. It's the only CSD in South Africa. It's a complicated business. It's absolutely vital. Without Straight, you might as well close the JSE. With Straight, and with the way that we fixed up the JSE, that's the way South Africa managed to fix up its reputation and still has the reputation as the best regulated securities exchange in the world. So it's Straight. Why? Because I understand the business. It's complex, it's unique, and I can trust the management. And then it's my old home. It's the First Rand Group, and the First Rand Group is huge. So the divisions being RMB, FNB, Ashburton, Westbank. Now we've started another life assurance company as well. So I'm involved with all of those divisions except Westbank, and then on the listed entity as well. So every third month I'm very busy. In between I'm less busy, and that's exactly the way it'll be.
Do you miss your position as CEO of the JSE Limited?
I miss aspects of it. I miss the interaction with the brokers, the companies, the deals that we did. There's some aspects that I don't miss.
You know I'm a journalist, so I'm going to ask you to elaborate on what you don't miss about the job.
As a CEO, often you become a quasi-HR manager. That aspect I must say I don't particularly miss. The deal making that we did, that I miss. But then again, I see a lot of that, but now from a non-executive capacity within the First Rand Group. It's fantastic working with these bright young people that are all so damn good at their jobs, serious, hard-working. It's fantastic.
If you could put out a handbook on the rules to being a CEO, what would the three most important things be?
The first one would have to be the leadership aspect, and that's where we fall down badly in South Africa. Corporate South Africa is doing fantastically despite the lack of political leadership that we have in South Africa. And the only reason corporate South Africa is doing well despite is because we've got very good corporate leaders in South Africa. So leadership has to be top of my list.
And what do you define as good leadership?
That's multifaceted, because in South Africa we can't talk about a lack of leadership. A democracy imposes leaders upon the people, be they good or bad. We unfortunately have bad leaders. What do I mean by that, if you ask me to elaborate? Well, people with knowledge of what they are supposed to be leading at, and people who have the will and the desire to lead for the benefit of the entire country, not for their own particular agendas. That applies exactly to a company. If you have a CEO with a specific agenda and it's not the company's agenda, well, then you've got a problem.
So basically...
Leadership.
Leadership.
Yeah.
Got it.
Then,
Number 2.
Then you've got to surround yourself as a leader with very smart people who share the agenda of the company. Or in the case of a country, the agenda of the entire country, not just part of the country. Or in the case of politicians, not leading just to try and stay in power, like you have with politicians all over the world. So surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded, diverse people, but are like-minded as far as the agenda of the company is concerned.
Number 3.
Well, it'll help if we have, like in any country that flourishes from an economic point of view, will be lucky enough to have an environment in which they are allowed to flourish.
So number 3 would be create an environment in which your employees are able to flourish.
Absolutely.
Now you speak of the genius within the First Rand Group and watching young people going about their daily agenda. What environment is it that's conducive to those people excelling?
First of all, it's this like-mindedness and the single-mindedness to do the best job that you possibly can in the interests of the company that pays your salary, in the interest of the company that you are working for. Because after all, that's where your fiduciary duty lies. It's the company that pays your salary. And then it's the question of knowing these youngsters, knowing that the environment is there because the First Rand Group is based on a meritocracy. And the First Rand Group is lucky enough to have a leadership that is extremely ethical, very hard-working, very principles-based, and just trying to do the best possible job. That creates the environment where everybody knows exactly where they stand, and they're quite happy to work very hard for that situation.
So we're still with the corporate handbook.
Yeah.
Being a CEO.
Yeah.
3 things not to do.
Surround yourself with a bunch of idiots, with a bunch of deployees. And remember, just about everything that I say that applies to a company applies to a country. The principles are identical. So if you are surrounding yourself with yes men and yes women who don't have the interest of the company or the country particularly at heart, but have their own personal agendas, well then there is no ways that you will succeed as a CEO. It might take a while to fail, but you will definitely fail. Okay, so because you can't do it on your own. It's impossible.
So you need people that are going to challenge you.
Absolutely. If there's corruption on the agenda, or corruption is overlooked, or you are prepared to be soft on those issues.
Don't compromise your ethics.
Don't compromise your ethics, because then again, it is only a question of time. Might take long, but it's only a question of time, either as a company or as a country. Don't do, which we often find in South Africa, is looking for the shortcuts. In other words, you're not prepared to look long term. You have this assumption that you are entitled to things. You're entitled to succeed. Once again, it's only a question of time before you'll get into trouble.
Russell, let's move now to the broader economic environment in South Africa.
Yeah.
We are contracting from a GDP perspective.
Yeah, we're operating way below our potential.
Do you see us getting out of this quagmire anytime soon?
There isn't a single problem, in my view, that we have in South Africa that we can't solve. Not a single one. Every single problem that we have can be solved to the satisfaction of all parties involved. That does not mean, and does not equal, that we will solve them. In fact, we might even mess them up more than what we are doing at the moment. And we are messing them up at the moment. We are operating way below our potential. Yes, we have a global situation where it is quite tough at the moment and could get even tougher. Certain parts of the world are getting their act together better than others. Those are normally the parts of the world that have a better political leadership, better regulatory environment than us. However, I guess things are always relative. To maintain sanity, one has to continually compare yourself to other parts of the world.
How do we compare to the rest of Africa? Does the rest of Africa excite you?
There's no question that there are opportunities in Africa, but Africa has got unique problems in many situations. Many parts of Africa are reliant on commodity prices. That's a problem at the moment, both from the pricing point of view as well as from the demand point of view.
Is it cyclical, or do you think we'll see commodities returning to more normalized levels, commodity prices, that is?
Well, there's no guarantee of that either. And yes, it is cyclical, but what does that mean? How long do these cycles last?
Well, I was hoping you were going to give me a little bit of insight. You've lived through many cycles.
Yeah, and Bronwyn,
have you seen this before?
Yes, absolutely. And the thing is, when times are bad and difficult and tough like they are now, then it's very easy to get into the situation where you think, well, things will never come right. I certainly don't subscribe to that view, but things also, Bronwyn, they don't come right all on their own. And this is another little lesson, or mentoring, as it were. It's damn difficult to keep things on an even keel. And that I don't have to spell out to you. You know how difficult it is, how much effort and work is required just to keep things on an even keel. You know how difficult it is to ensure that things continually get better. You know how much constant work, effort by smart people is involved in order to achieve that. If you remove just one of those ingredients, you don't work hard anymore. You don't have smart people who know what has to be done, when it has to be done. Well, then it is a definite that you will fail. So the tough economic times that we've got at the moment, the man and woman power is there to solve it. That doesn't mean that the correct man and woman power will be employed to solve it.
Well, so let's go back to your career.
Yes.
And your legacy at the JSE. Do you have regrets?
No, I have no regrets. That's the quick answer.
Have you made mistakes? Did you make mistakes?
Absolutely. I've made mistakes, and the trick, I guess, is always, if you're going to make the same mistake over and over again, well, then you're just plain dumb. So you hope that you learn from your mistakes, because that's what you're supposed to. That's how you're supposed to develop judgment over a period of time.
Can you maybe give us a little color around some of the bigger lessons you've had to endure yourself from making mistakes?
There's so many. Made many mistakes.
Choose one.
Yeah.
Give me one that's interesting, that'll captivate the audience out there.
Maybe a personal failure, weakness, mistake is not consulting enough with your good people. You know, even as a youngster, there was nobody I could ever turn to for advice. So I grew up used to the fact that I would have to be able to solve the problems all on my own.
That's a very lonely path to travel.
Yeah, and that means that often it takes you longer to solve the particular problem, and sometimes you don't solve it as quickly as you should have, or you don't solve it. I'm quite envious of people who have this ability to discuss and talk and debate things with the colleagues around them, because that often gets you to the solution quicker. That must not be confused, Bronwyn, with continually debating something
and not being
never
able to make a
making
decision.
Yeah, because
quick decision making is also an attribute of a good leader.
Yeah.
And taking accountability for your decisions.
Well, that's right. And there, the chain is do the research on the particular problem and do proper research without turning it into an academic situation. Make the decision at the end of the day, one way or another, and then, where we fail in South Africa, implement.
Do you think many CEOs get swept up in ego?
Yeah, unquestionably. And then you're not going to get me to name any, because
I wasn't even going to try, Russell.
yeah, there are lots of people. I mean, we just have to look at the problems that we have in corporate South Africa, and when I'm tough on government and tough on political leadership, that must not be interpreted as, well, the business side is fine. Of course it's not. The only problem is, if you're not fine with business and you go under, you go insolvent. As an individual, you get sequestrated. That same type of penalty doesn't seem to be paid in government.
If we make you president tomorrow,
Yes.
what would be the first thing that you do?
The first thing, which will be difficult and not difficult to tackle, but is absolutely essential that it gets tackled, is the question of corruption. Because that is a cancer where, if you don't address it and reduce it to an acceptable level, or get a situation where there are penalties to be paid for corrupt activity, well, that cancer eats into every piece of the fabric of society, and it just detracts from the potential, like it's doing in South Africa right now. You know, and we fool ourselves in South Africa. We talk about creating industrialists. What we actually mean is creating capitalists. But you daren't use this word called capitalist. I don't know of a single successful industrialist that is not a capitalist. But then we fool ourselves into this, using this stupid these words. No, we're not going to create capitalists, we're going to create industrialists. It's confused thinking.
Let's move on to the softer side of things. You are watching rugby, you're watching the World Cup 2015. You see Japan thrashing South Africa. What went through your mind?
Yeah, that's a classical example of getting things wrong from the top. You cannot tell me that in South Africa, with where little boys are running around kicking a ball since from the age of 3. They're like Austrian skiers that are on their skis from 3 years old. Those are the future world champions. South Africans that have got the physical build and the physical strength, that have clearly got the skills, that have been playing the sport since they were 3 years old. You cannot tell me that is not one of the crucial ingredients to win the World Cup for a third time. We've got the raw material. Where does it go wrong? Well, it goes wrong from the top, starting with management, filtering down into the coaching methodologies. That's where we fall down. And we might do well despite that, but it's the story of South Africa. We could be doing so much better.
Do you think we have corrected the initial mistakes that we made in this World Cup?
Yes, you certainly hope that people learn from their mistakes, the equivalent of CEOs, and are busy correcting those mistakes. You certainly hope so, because we have the ability to win the World Cup for a third time.
Do you think we're going to do it?
Well, I didn't think we'd get into the quarters. Now we've got into the quarters. We should be.
With a solid performance to this
Absolutely.
point.
We've been playing better all the time.
Sport is incredibly important for South Africans.
That's our psyche. It's part of our psyche. It's vital for us.
So you hope we're going to win the World Cup?
Yes. We should get into the semis. We should be able to beat Wales easily. We should be able to get into the semis, and then we'll see from there.
Russell, just finally, you've given us a little insight into the 2 board appointments, and that's enough of your time dedicated to corporate South Africa.
Yeah.
Tell me as we end this interview, what is, there's something else that you're wanting to do beyond corporate? Is there anything, or are you just very satisfied right now? Things couldn't be better.
No. I'm forever impatient and...
So satisfied is not a term I should associate with you?
No. Essentially, I'm an optimist. And I'm always looking for nice, new, exciting things to do. Whether it's with my grandchildren, of which I now have 2 beautiful little things, or whether it's with mates doing exciting things, playing a great round of golf, skiing on a fantastic slope, cycling with a lot of mates. I mean, reading a great book. That's one thing. I'm doing a lot of reading now, and I don't read any fiction. I'm tending to read a lot of history and a lot of contemporary stuff. And which I didn't have time for in my CEO days. There it was just financial stuff all day, every day, 24 hours a day, and that I'm finding hugely rewarding.
Russell, thanks very much for your time, and thanks for giving us some insight into life after the JSE, and of course giving us your thoughts on the economy, on leadership, and I'm sure that many of our viewers are going to find those insights invaluable. You're watching Captains of Industry here at CNBC Africa. I've been chatting to Russell Loubser, former CEO of the JSE Limited.